Welcome. This is my 11th week of recording videos every Thursday and up to video number 13. So thank you if you've been watching along from the start. And if you're new here, there's plenty of videos to go back and watch. Some of them are me talking and some of them are yoga practices. Today I'm going to talk about going along to a yoga class when you have a chronic illness and you haven't done it before, or you're getting back to yoga after not being well enough or not being in the habit of going to class. Because yoga is very beneficial if you're not feeling well, trying to figure out some kind of practice that will work for your body. And for a lot of people that might mean that classes aren't possible, that just the trying to get out of the house to go along to a class takes more energy than you have available. But there are also plenty of people out there who could manage going to a class if they explored how to make it possible for them. So this video, I'll go through some things that I think would be helpful to consider and helpful to put into practice when you are organising to go along to a class for the first time, how to pace your way through the class, and yeah, hopefully it's helpful. I've got 4 students in my classes who have CFS, and I've got CFS and have had it for more than 25 years. I can't think what the number is now. I find yoga is really beneficial for my well-being, and my yoga looks very different to a lot of yoga that's on YouTube and Instagram, and it's good that I'm able to offer classes in real life to suit people that have, CFS severe enough that they're not able to work. This is not always the case in classes in the community, so you can't just know that going to yoga is going to be gentle enough for you. It takes a bit of research, a bit of asking around, maybe talking to some yoga teachers or yoga studios if that's available in your area, to find out what their classes are like, get a feel for what the teacher's like. So you might be comfortable going along to a class that's a bit too hard if you like the teacher and would feel comfortable making a lot of modifications, resting a lot during the class. But if you don't feel comfortable with the teacher, then that's not really going to be something you want to do. So yeah, the hardest part of getting back to yoga kind of can be walking into a class for the first time and not really knowing what's ahead of you. That if all goes smoothly, then you might be able to manage, but if you need to have a lot of energy to introduce yourself to the teacher or mingle, or you don't know how the class format's going to be, you can kind of wind up doing too much and being really exhausted by the end and it not being a good experience. So trying to figure out how to prepare, how to do the research before you actually walk into the room helps set you up for better success. Mentally, it can be quite hard to go along to a class with able-bodied people when your body's been letting you down, when you don't have the strength and the energy, the flexibility that you would if you weren't chronically ill. So getting your head around the emotions and the feelings and the maybe negative self-talk is a bit of a process, one that's worth persevering with, if it means that you can get into a class. It can be a really nice atmosphere to be a part of that community, to be able to show up each week and see familiar faces and maybe form some friendships. Maybe in your area, like people that go to your class you'll then bump into at the supermarket or the library, or some of them might go and have a cup of tea afterwards that you can tag along with sometimes and feel like your horizons are expanding a bit, that if you're chronically ill and you're feeling pretty isolated. People that go to yoga are often really friendly and interesting and kind. So once you kind of can get your head around being in a body that's not as healthy, isn't behaving well, and be gentle and trust that it's worth trying, worth figuring out how you can be a student in a real life class. It can be really good. There can be a lot of grief over the lifestyle that you might have had if you were well, and yoga may not have even been something that was on your radar, but now it's like one of the few things that might be possible sport-wise. Like before I got sick, played a lot of netball and cycling and tennis and just being really fit and active, and now all of that's not really possible. But fortunately yoga was something that I started when I was a kid, so it was good to be able to return to it and have it as part of my life for, like, I think I've been doing 2 classes a week for 15 years or so now, and maybe 1 class a week for quite a long time before that too. So I hope that you feel like you want to explore this avenue. Doing some videos helps you get more familiar with the different asanas or poses that are done commonly in yoga. So that's another way that you can prepare yourself to kind of know what might be ahead when you turn up. And it gives you the opportunity to think of how you'll modify things. You might pretty quickly realize that downward facing dog is just too much for your body. So then when you're in a class, you just know you'll wait while the other people do it. You can rest in child, which is kind of on your knees, resting your head on your mat. It's a position that helps you, like you're hiding away a little bit, so you're not feeling like your face is hidden. So you can have just that little breathing time where you wait till the others catch up, or you can do a modification that the teacher might offer, or do something like cat that's still weight bearing on your hands and legs and stretching into your spine. So if you kind of get familiar through watching some videos, you can watch back through some of mine. Sometimes in the videos I'll offer modifications. It can be really good to go along to a class with a friend, just that moral support and someone that you can grimace at during the class when you're finding it really hard, or feeling like that someone's got your back. So that's another thing to think about. Often, like when you attend a new class, when you're a new student, the teacher will ask you, like, have you done yoga before? And they'll ask if you have any injuries, so they can be aware of them and help offer modifications. So having an answer, so when you're asked those questions, you don't have to think about it too hard on the spot, and you can have already figured out what you're comfortable sharing with the teacher, and that if you've got a little spiel that you can say, you don't overshare. Like, you can kind of find when someone asks you something, you can go down a bit of a rabbit hole and tell them too much, and that can be a bit unsettling, especially if you're then going to sit in front of the teacher through the class and you're like, oh, I wish I didn't say that. So like, you could get in touch with the teacher before you go along to your first class, so that you've had maybe a phone call with them or an email back and forth where you can explain your circumstances, so that you don't have to do that on the day, that you don't have to put that energy into chatting with the teacher. You can just say hi and sit down on your mat once you arrive. You could, if you're contacting them by email, you can then send them a bit of information about your illness. Teachers don't always know about different conditions, and you might have something that's a bit more rare, and you can also then write about how it affects you, what parts of your body are the most troublesome, or what you have to be really careful of. It gives the teacher time to do their own research, that it might be something they haven't come across before and they'd like to be able to offer you assistance so that you can keep your body safe, and that they can have a student that's going to return to their class and a student that's had a good experience coming along to yoga. So yeah, getting in touch with the teacher, and like, you can fire off emails to half a dozen teachers if you've got that option in your area, or to like the yoga studio itself, and they might say, oh, this particular teacher might be a really good fit for you, and then you're just a couple more steps closer to having that good experience for your first time going to a class. Then when you are going to go along, you need to wear some clothes. So trying to make that like not a big deal, that you don't have to go and buy a new outfit. You don't have to wear different clothes each class you go to. You can sort of figure out maybe your yoga outfit or uniform that's just what you wear to yoga. Be really mindful if you wear black leggings, that they tend to go quite see-through if they're not like proper gym quality yoga pants, or if you've got a larger body, that when they stretch over your bottom, your underwear can really show through. So if that's the case, like, just wear sensible underwear, dark coloured knickers, and doesn't really matter if they show, but it's better than having something like with a bright print on it that's a bit too in your face for the person sitting behind you, and it'll make you feel more comfortable that when you're contorting your body a bit, that you're feeling comfortable. A lot of activewear have these zips at the top of the lower back. These are my thrifted Lululemons. One of my sisters is very good at finding me activewear. So when you're buying activewear, just be mindful that the zipper pull is going to be underneath you when you're lying on your mat. So yeah, figure out when you try them on in the shop, you could even lay down on the floor and just feel, or you might find that you need to have the zip open a bit so that where the zipper is sitting on your back is a bit more comfortable. You could also, like, just with pliers, take the lumpy, the bit that holds this tag off especially if you're not going to be using the pocket in the pants. That's just a tip that I've found to be quite helpful. I've taken the zipper off some. Those ones seem to be comfortable enough, which is good. You want to wear some clothes that you don't have to keep readjusting through the class, like some t-shirts, the necks can be quite low, so when you're like on your hands and knees in cat, you can see down your top, or if you do dog facing down and your top flight, comes down around your shoulders, and it just adds to your kind of uncomfortableness being in a class. So have a good think, wear a decent bra, do some moving around before you head off so that you know that your underwear is working for you. It can be really distracting to just not be comfortable. It's best not to wear socks because they can be kind of slippery, but you might wear them until the class starts and put them back on for the relaxation. The same with layers on your top half, that keep them nearby perhaps so that for the relaxation you can put them on, because we cool down really fast once we've been active and then we stop all of a sudden, and that keeping warm can help your muscles recover a bit better. What else have I got written down? If you are going to a class where you bring along your own mat, or that the class is held in a room with a wooden floor, you might want to bring along an extra blanket, like a fairly thick one that you can place over your mat during some of the class to have that extra thickness underneath you when you're doing things lying on your back. Or if you need it for the warmth underneath you, some buildings can be quite cold. Don't be concerned if you need to wear like way too many layers, keeping your coat on, or figure out something you can wear that you'll be nice and warm. Chronic illness often means that your temperature regulation's not very good and you can get really cold, and that's not what you want when you're stretching and moving your muscles. That they are a lot happier if you're nice and warm. Making sure like you've had enough to eat in the time before your class, but not too much, so that you've digested your food before you start moving, but that you've eaten enough so you've got plenty of energy to get you through the class. Having something ready like in your bag or the car to eat as you finish, and taking a drink bottle along. Some illnesses have symptoms that mean you have to be really mindful of keeping your blood volume up, so electrolyte drinks can be really helpful. Most classes are quite okay that you sip your water throughout the class. Making sure you have heaps to drink at the end when you're finished and when you go home, that all of the movement is moving through your lymphatic system as well. That is part of your immune system, and it then drains into your blood supply. So then that gets your blood, goes into the different organs of filtration and removes those toxins, but it's still toxins and waste products and can still be like quite a big load on your system. So be mindful of the impact that has, and I guess reminding yourself that it is such a benefit. As long as your body can handle it, it's helping your body do its job when it may not be working quite as efficiently as it would otherwise. And part of that can be if you're quite inactive due to your symptoms, due to your low energy, that if you're not moving your muscles a lot through each day, you're not putting that work into your lymphatic system, that when the muscles contract and your bones move, your muscles are pushing on your lymphatic system, and that's how the lymph moves through the body. It's that compression, and I guess gravity plays a big part too, that with your circulation and your lymphatic system, that trying to find ways to move your body. So I've got a couple of videos that touch on that, a couple of the earlier ones, so if that's something that kind of makes sense to you, it would be good if you go back and have a watch and have a think about how you can incorporate more gentle movement just through your day, so that you don't actually need to stop and have energy to do yoga. You just do a few little movements 20 times a day, and each time that your muscles are moving, they're helping your blood return to your heart, helping your lymph move through that lymphatic system, part of your immune system and your circulation system, and that helps your body do some of its jobs. During a class, there might be some poses that are repeated, like one that I do with my students is leg lift. So you're lying on your back, raising and lowering your leg. We do 10 times on each leg, and that's quite a lot. And if you start something and they're counting, or they've told you how, the teacher tells you how many you're going to do, figure out what a good number is, because if you're doing like your right leg first, you might decide just to do 5 and then have a break, and then you can match it on the other side instead of aiming for 10, and then by the time you get to the next leg you're like, oh, I can't even move it one time now, I'm so tired. The same if you're holding a pose, like it might be some kind of a lunge, or so figure out how, like, count up. You might count your breaths and decide once you get to 3 inhales and exhales, you're going to push back out of the pose and have a rest, and then decide how many breaths of rest you'll have. Just that practice of counting means that you can do it again the next time you do the pose and see if it's a bit easier this time or not, or just put some limits on yourself so that you don't overdo it. But yeah, the big part is getting a feel for what your body can manage and listening to it through each class, so that you're not just following the teacher blindly, that you're figuring out what your body needs to stay safe, and so you can come back to a class so it's a good experience. It's kind of better to do too little than too much, that you might walk out going, oh, I could have tried a bit harder, I could have done a bit more. That's so much better than walking out going, oh my gosh, I was so silly, I just kept going when my body was telling me to stop. And it's a huge part of the yoga philosophy, doing no harm. So our thoughts and our physical practice can be really detrimental, that if we don't listen to our body, we don't pace ourselves, we don't be kind with our thoughts, that we're just putting this whole other burden on our lives. And it can be tough enough if you have a chronic illness without having those habits that really make an extra amount to cope with. So listening to your body and knowing that, like, you probably will be sore after going to a class, and that's okay. It might be really hard if you're already in a lot of pain, but knowing that the soreness is because you've been using those muscles that might have been used in that way for a long time, and knowing that it's not all just because you have a chronic illness that you're tired from the class and sore from the class, that it's normal that our bodies do react to exercise, and that there are a lot of people that go along for their first class who don't have a chronic illness who will be sore and tired afterwards because they're not used to using their body either. They'll probably recover quicker from the class than you will, but after your first class you can then kind of reassess what you need to do differently the next time. Having a think about the time of day too that suits you to go along to a class. Often they're at night, but I've always found that like you can finish a class in the evening and feel nice and relaxed, but then kind of get home and have to get organized, ready for bed, and kind of by the time I get into bed it's a bit harder to get to sleep than I would expect, and part of it's just that kind of rebound effect from being out in the world and then stopping, and the symptoms can be really loud at night anyway, and if you've just done something that's quite tiring. So yeah, just be mindful about the choices that you make. If you do have an option to go to a class during the day, that can be like that might suit you a lot better, like I've found. Another thing is if you have trouble with your blood pressure or just fatigue in general, that there can be different things done in a class that is done standing up that when you're doing them you realize, oh, I could do this sitting down. A lot of my years of doing yoga before I became a teacher, I would sit down like during about 3 or 4 things in some classes because it was just using the upper body, and that helped me deal with the difficulties I have with my blood pressure and regulation of my heart rate and all that kind of thing. So just find ways that take some of the load off your body based on what your symptoms are like. It might be figuring out how to sit during the class when there's a lot of time just sitting. Often it's cross-legged and it may not be comfortable for you. You might have some options like having your legs extended, just kind of mixing it up so that you don't overdo it, that you're not straining your body just to fit in with what's being asked of the whole class, that you've got particular needs and you need to figure out how to keep your body safe and comfortable. You might, at the end of the class, have a few things that you want to talk to the teacher about. It could be good even to have a notebook beside your mat so that during the class you can jot down some things like, oh, cat was really hard for me. And then after class, you've got that reminder instead of being so tired at the end of class that you can't remember exactly what things you want a bit of guidance with. Yeah, that's getting near the end. Figuring out just how to reframe your thoughts about what it means to be going to yoga, what it means to be living in a body with a chronic illness. Or maybe you're just watching this because you haven't done classes and you know that your body's going to be kind of something that makes it difficult to start going, that you might find that you're really unfit or not flexible or just not comfortable about having to get down on the floor. I teach chair yoga as well, and that might be something that's around in your community too that you can look out for and have a go of. Could even be something that you explore with a teacher that's local and say, I've heard about this chair yoga and wondered if it's something you'd be interested in starting. Perhaps you know some other people that live nearby that have a chronic illness or might be sort of feeling like they're too old to start yoga, or that they've got injuries, or that their body shape just doesn't make it easy to sit down on the floor, or that they're not comfortable going along to a class with people that go all the time, that it's hard to be a beginner, and it's harder to be a beginner in a different body. It can be different for so many different reasons, but there's usually a way that things can be modified to make different bodies and different people feel more comfortable and safe and like they belong there. So I'll end it there. I would really love to hear from you if you've watched this. I got a lovely comment from my last video from a girl called Jen, and she has CFS as well, and she found that the videos were gentle enough that she could do yoga again for the first time, and we exchanged email addresses and have been able to have an email to get to know each other a bit more. So if you'd like to get in touch too, my email address for this at the moment is skirtdays. So like a skirt that you wear and then the word days, D-A-Y-S, as one word. So skirtdays @gmail.com. YouTube doesn't have an inbox anymore, and that's going to be a way to keep in touch just at the moment. But yeah, you can leave a comment. I'd really like to hear some feedback, and please like the video, hit the like button, hit subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and then yeah, if there's anyone that you know who would find any of the videos helpful, it would be really great if you're able to share them. It seems like when people find the videos that they're enjoying them, but that it is hard to get them discovered. It was really lovely that the algorithm on YouTube served up the video to Jen, that she hadn't even searched for yoga or chronic illness type things, and somehow the algorithm knew that this video might be right for her. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if there's any other topics that you think of that you'd like a video, you can comment sharing them below, or you can email me at skirtdays.com, skirtdays@gmail.com. Thank you.